Hey guys, Dominus here, and today we are gonna talk about 25 best free Steam games to play in 2024. Steam is the go-to destination for PC gamers looking to play the latest titles or an age-old classic that's still kicking around. And there are plenty of free Steam games well worth your time, even if you can't or don't want to spend a cent. From MMOs to shooters to in-depth single-player RPGs, the Valve-created platform has every game genre you could possibly want to experience. However, a majority of the games available on Steam cost some amount of money, which might not be too attractive to gamers on a budget. So, instead of a paying entry fee, just a download one, you can instead download hundreds of Steam free games. Of course, just because a game is free on Steam doesn't mean it's worth downloading. If you are looking for the best bang for your buck, or in this case the best bang for your time, then check out this video where I'm gonna list 25 best free Steam games available in 2024. Just a note, this list is no particular and is based on free games you can play it right away today. This includes free downloads as well as free-to-play games where I feel you can still have a great, substantial experience without spending any money. I want to welcome you all to the video and I hope you will like it. It doesn't feel right to have any other title kick off the list, as Counter-Strike 2 reinvented the famous franchise with its late 2023 release. Valve corrected course with Counter-Strike 2, making it a free-to-play title right off the bat instead of charging users to play as it initially did with Counter-Strike Global Offensive. While CS2 keeps most of its aspects and features from CSGO in place, it also improves upon them in numerous ways. From new mechanics and graphics to a more fluid user experience overall, CS2 is still the best classic FPS that PC gamers grew up loving. And now, in 2024, the franchise is more widely available than ever thanks to the free price of admission. Next on the list is the Lost Ark. Lost Ark became an instant sensation when it was released on Steam in early 2022. Of course, if you'd been following the game before that, you know it was also a massive hit in the eastern part of the world, where it had been popular for several years. However, the Western release of the game allowed it to come to the Steam and gain an entirely new following. Lost Ark is an MMORPG that features some of the most in-depth system you'll find in an RPG, from the way the classes work to understanding what every single item in the game does. You can lose yourself for hundreds of hours in Lost Ark's gigantic world. Apex Legends is one of the more enjoyable multiplayer games you can access for free on Steam. The Battle Royale/Arena FPS has consistently been a top choice for multiplayer gamers every year since its release in 2019. While a bulk of the game's legends, or heroes if you want, are locked behind a paywall, you can get through that through sheer playtime. It may take a while, but with enough hours you'll eventually be able to unlock all of the legends that have arrived in the years since Apex initial launch. The game itself is a fast-paced battle royale shooter with witty characters, deep customization, incredibly fast and fluid gameplay, and several game modes to pick from. Further improving the experience, it offers crossplay and cross-progression, allowing you to play with those on other platforms or take your unlocks between systems. Number 22. Yet another free-to-play title from Valve, Dota 2 remains one of the most popular MOBAs on the market for years. While League of Legends might be the more famous MOBA, there's no denying the impact Dota 2 has had on the gaming industry. It was released in 2013 and was free right from the start, which was uncommon sight back in the early 2010s. While similar to the League of Legends in various ways, Dota 2 has remained popular thanks to the challenging gameplay that you are always striving to master. If you can get past the game's steeper learning curve, you'll likely never truly put the game down again. Valve is back on the list yet again. Team Fortress 2 was released way back in 2007 as part of the Orange Box before transforming into a free-to-play title in 2011. The game's business model likely impacted many of the decisions we see from the game developers today, as Valve relied heavily on microtransactions for revenue of an enterprise after going free-to-play. The gameplay in Team Fortress 2 hasn't changed much over the years, focusing on FPS actions with a distinct set of 9 classes. If you haven't played the game since the early days or only ever on console, it's evolved greatly with a loadout system that grants more flexibility to each class without betraying their archetypes. Plus, you can equip some sweet hats. There are still content updates coming in 2024, so there's no reason not to try out one of the best FPS games of all time. Next on the list is Warframe. A Steam darling for years, Warframe is one of the first free-to-play games that players recommend in 2024. Warframe has grown much larger since its initial release, starting as a story-driven third-person shooter with multiple features but turning into a content-filled masterpiece that's still receiving updates in 2024. It can be defined as a grindy looter shooter with plenty of microtransactions, but as long as you put in the time, you can acquire just about anything. This is especially good considering how addictive the gameplay is, featuring fast-paced movement, fantastic gunplay, and a wide variety of locations and enemies. While Path of Exile 2 might eventually surpass its predecessor, the original Path of Exile is still one of the best games on Steam, period. The ARPG revolutionized the genre that was mainly dominated by the Diablo franchise, implementing in-depth classes and systems. You can truly build your character any way you want, and it takes hours to fully understand all of the skills and mechanics of each class. The story and world should also not be underestimated in Path of Exile, as you thrust into a fantasy environment where the ruling government has exiled your kind to an outside continent, and you need to fight your way back to seek revenge. Next on the list is Final Fantasy XIV Online. Final Fantasy XIV is one of, if not the best MMORPGs that you can play in 2024. It features hundreds of hours of gameplay, several expansions, and has a large and mostly welcoming community of dedicated players. However, the game technically requires a subscription to play, which would make it ineligible for this list, so we are getting around that by including the trial version of Final Fantasy XIV on the list instead. The trial version comes with the entirety of the base story, A Realm Reborn and its 2 expansions, Heavensward and Stormblood. You can get your character to level 70 in the trial version and experience a large chunk of the game without forking over a dime. Final Fantasy XIV offers arguably the best bang for your time value on this entire list. Destiny 2 didn't get off to the best of starts when it followed up the original game in 2017. However, after years of work and updates, the developers at Bungie have delivered a great MMO shooter, jam-packed with new seasons every year, events and content-filled updates. One of the best components of Destiny 2 is the ability to play with your friends regardless of what system they are on, which makes raids and other events much more enjoyable. Of course, you are still free to play Destiny 2 entirely solo and as a PvP or PvE shooter, which makes it a title you can always come back to year in year out, while you'll eventually want to spend money on the DLC if you decide to get heavily invested in the game. There is a substantial portion of the overall experience that you can enjoy without doing so. Few games can bring back as much nostalgia for gamers in 2024 as old-school RuneScape. The classic MMORPG released in the early 2000s has become a mainstay in the genre, maintaining a player base of millions year after year. For a while, OSRS and the newer version, simply dubbed the RuneScape, were only available to play via Jagex launcher. However, the developers eventually brought both games to Steam, introducing an entirely new community to the world of RuneScape. While both games require a member subscription to fully experience everything they have to offer, you can play and access hours of content for free. Both games are fantastic MMORPGs, offering 50+ unique and in-depth quests, 24 individual classes to level up, and thousands of items to loot, among several other systems and features. I recommend starting with OSRS and moving to the new version of RuneScape for the first-time players. OSRS features more classic elements of MMORPG and a well-established community. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is one of the best RPG titles of all time. Aside from the story, visuals and gameplay, one aspect that makes The Witcher 3 so great is GWENT, the card game within the main game. Players went so over the top with GWENT that the developers at CD Projekt Red decided to make an entire spin-off card game for it. The game plays similarly to how it does in The Witcher 3, but it's far more advanced, with more decks to choose from and new abilities across the board. Even if you are a GWENT master in The Witcher 3, the standalone version of GWENT will have you learning a completely new game. It's incredibly addictive and requires no former knowledge of the Witcher franchise. Next on the list is Halo Infinite. Although support is slowing down and players do still have complaints, Halo Infinite remains a very fun shooter to play for free on Steam. The multiplayer modes in Halo Infinite are completely free to access, while the campaign costs extra. Infinite features many of the same features that Halo fans have come to love over the years, and there are new aspects to keep all players busy. From the Forge, where you can design new maps, to a flurry of different game modes, you won't grow bored in Halo Infinite as long as you are branching out beyond ranked play. The developers at 343 Industries are still pushing out content and updates, but there tends to be a delay between the content, so you have to be patient with Infinite's current form. The Sims is one of the most recognizable gaming franchises in the industry, and you can play the fourth installment completely for free on Steam. The Sims 4 is the life simulator that everyone knows and loves, complete with full customizations of your Sims, their homes, and the cities they live in. You can travel to different cities to learn about the new Sims and their lives, and you have the full control over your personal Sims' lives and how they live them. You're essentially playing God, and it's up to you how you wield that power. The Sims 4 is receiving fairly regular content updates in 2024, so it's still a great time to jump and start playing. A new game in the series, casually known as The Sims 5, codename Project Green, is also on the way. Overwatch 2 is the controversial follow-up to the original Overwatch, a game that became a global sensation back in 2015 and was replaced by this free-to-play sequel. Seen as not doing enough to justify the 2 in the title early on, Overwatch 2 has gotten to somewhat better place within its community in 2024. The Steam reviews are still negative, with fans complaining about the lack of PvE mode among other things. While the game definitely has some issues, the entire lineup of heroes is now free to access and the shooter is receiving consistent seasons and updates. The developers even just changed how the battle pass works, making it more user-friendly. It's a great multiplayer game to play casually with your friends or to take more seriously in the competitive play. The Finals is a relatively new action first-person shooter that takes the structurable environment to a whole new level. It follows the arena shooter style of gameplay, with a majority of the modes separating a lobby into teams with the sole goal of eliminating enemy teams. However, with the fully destructible environments present on all of the maps in the game, matches can get extremely chaotic. This aspect specifically makes for a highly replayable experience, as no one match is going to play out like the previous one in the finals. With the recent success around the Fallout TV show and players flocking back to the Fallout games, why not try one of the more underrated titles in the franchise? While Fallout Shelter isn't a deep RPG with tons of lore, it is an enjoyable settlement simulator that tasks you with maintaining a vault as an overseer. You have to create new areas within the vault, use tools and junk items to build better areas for your citizens. You connect deeply with the vault dwellers that call your vault their home, speaking with them and listening to any issues they have. You're able to explore the surface and take part in some combat to keep your vault safe, making it reminiscent of some of the earlier Fallout titles. Next on the list we have a game called Brawlhalla. In a world packed with clones of Super Smash Bros., Brawlhalla does a great job of doing its best to distinguish itself from the rest of the pack. Featuring a wide variety of fighters to use and maps to play on, Brawlhalla takes the gameplay design of Super Smash Bros. And puts its own twist on it. There are public, private and ranked matches to participate in, as well as 8-player online and local co-op. You can also experience a flurry of crossovers that feature playable characters from different franchises, with the Star Wars crossover being particularly enjoyable. Of course, plenty of content in Brawlhalla requires a monetary purchase to access, but that's the nature of free-to-play titles. Even so, if you're a fan of Super Smash Bros. But want a new experience to try out, your first stop should be Brawlhalla. War Thunder is not your run-of-the-mill MMORPG. You don't design a character and step out into a fantastic world with adventure waiting around every corner. Instead, you're placed at the center of military conflicts and must use land, sea or ground vehicles to dispatch enemies in all sorts of unique crafts. These vehicles range from older 20th century crafts to the most modern ones that are available. The diversity of combat really shines in War Thunder, as you can battle enemies in new locations, whether you are on the ground in a tank, on the sea in a naval ship, or in the air with a fighter jet. Love it or hate it, Warzone is one of the most popular games on the market today. Everyone seems to have a stern opinion on Call of Duty one way or the other, but you can't deny the cultural impact Warzone has made on the industry and the community at large. A battle royale title, Warzone features the familiar gameplay loop of dropping onto a large map, fighting for loot and surviving to be the last person or team standing. However, Warzone also offers nuances to the loop, including picking a weapon loadout, completing contracts and being able to respawn via the Gulag. It's something any FPS gamer should try at some point, as Warzone isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There are frequent seasonal updates and changes every year with the release of new mainline Call of Duty titles. Marvel Snap began as a mobile game, but its Steam release was aimed at giving streamers more tools to show off their winning strategies. The collectible card game has you build a deck of heroes and villains from across the Marvel universe and compete for territory control across a random selection of zones. With a betting and bluffing mechanic, you can snap on your opponent to double your take if you think you have a winning hand. And hailing from some of the key developers of Hearthstone, Marvel Snap is built to focus on smaller decks, quicker matches and more frequent updates than most digital CCGs. Naraka Bladepoint is an underrated multiplayer shooter with deep combat systems and challenging gameplay. Focusing most heavily on melee combat, you need to get up close and personal with your opponents in a battle royale setting if you want to eliminate them and get one step closer to winning a match. It features elements of Souls-like combat, being made up of combos, parries and dodging. Matches feature up to 60 players who drop onto a medium-sized map and fight it out using loot that's found on the ground in various ways. It's similar to any other battle royale title, but the engaging combat is where Naraka Bladepoint stands out. An older title on the list, Guild Wars 2, is an MMORPG that came to Steam fairly recently. It features a large and engaging open world called Tyria that fully encourages exploration. There are dozens and dozens of unique locations to see where you can take on quests, defeat enemies or simply take in the sights. Other players in your world can help with defeating a massive world boss, solving a puzzle or completing an in-game event. As with any MMORPG, you can choose from a variety of classes, each possessing its own lineup of weapons and gear to wield. The base game of Guild Wars 2 is completely free, but you will have to buy extra expansions to experience everything the MMORPG has to offer. Doki Literature Club is unlike anything else on this list. While you might be immediately distracted by the vibrant colors and anime designs of the game, those distractions won't last long, as you'll soon be shocked by horrific events that happen to the game's characters. A visual novel game, Doki Literature Club is not for the faint of heart, as you'll need to be able to endure some truly disturbing sights that include depictions of murder, gore and more. I'll save the rest of the game details for you to experience on your own, but don't be fooled by Doki's visuals or opening scenes. Another unique title for the list, Endless Sky, is a deep space combat simulator. You start out as the captain of your own ship, but with little money to your name. To make some money, you can transport passengers to destinations as a taxi of sorts, trade resources and complete other jobs throughout the galaxy. At the forefront of the 2D single-player game is combat and trading. Combat is difficult to master as you have to navigate through an enemy's defenses while also avoiding their attacks. As for trading, there are several systems in place that allow you to make money, but also lose it just as easily. For fans of the classic Atari games or those with a love for space combat in general, Endless Sky is not a game to miss. The final entry on the list goes to the sequel of one of the best RPGs of all time, Undertale. Delta Run might not be as famous as its predecessor, but it's a truly underrated game that takes players on yet another unforgettable adventure. You play as Chris, who is thrust into a world-saving journey with two other characters. There is Susie, a kind-hearted monster, and Ralsei, a dark world prince. Together with your party, you'll make difficult choices, encounter tough enemies to battle, and see beautiful locations. Aside from the award-winning gameplay that's present in Undertale, Delta Run also features an incredible soundtrack that was composed by the lone developer. Delta Run is split up into 2 chapters, both of which are available for free on Steam, with more still to come, with a price tag attached. Thank you all for watching, don't forget to subscribe, let me know in the comments below what your favorite game out of this list is, and until next time.